Good evening, Attorney Main.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, council members.
Just for the record, if you could identify yourself and the gentleman.
Absolutely. Robin Main on behalf of the applicant, the Watch Hill Fire District.
Peter August, Watch Hill Conservancy.
Thank
Mr.
you.
August, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth will help you God?
I do. And August, AUGUST, like the month.
Thank you. Please, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is a maintenance application for an in-kind replacement and leveling of existing split rail fences. They were initially approved administratively in 2019. The split rail fences are designed to keep pedestrians on pre-existing paths through Napa Tree Point rather than create new paths through the dune system that would in turn trample vegetation. No variances were needed for this, but we are here this evening to include the reception of multiple objections. The objections received mainly concerned 2 points. One, the claim that split rail fencing to be maintained crosses and obstructs Fort Road. And 2, the applicant's failure to acknowledge the existence of Fort Road in their application. Additionally, one objection was related to the issue of proper ownership documentation. For the record, it is not the intent of the staff report to evaluate Fort Road as a right-of-way. The exact location, ownership, and use of Fort Road is being actively litigated. CRMC is not a party in that litigation. Rather, the staff review evaluates the geologic and environmental impacts of the proposed maintenance work on coastal resources. As we know, dune health is directly related to the amount of vegetation present within the system. Beach grass decreases harmful erosion, but is easily killed by human foot traffic. Split rail fences are the preferred method for management of foot traffic across these systems, as there are no impacts on sedimentary processes. By the management of 8 well-marked paths instead of dozens of ephemeral paths, the dune's susceptibility to erosion is mitigated, and the scenic and ecological value of the dune is preserved. The existing paths accomplish the dual goals of valuable public access and conservation of the dune system as a natural habitat. It is the opinion of staff that this application meets the requirements put forth in the CRMP, and staff recommends approval of the application with the standard stipulations. Additional stipulations will also be added regarding Fort Road and be prepared. Should the Rhode Island Superior Court rule on the location, ownership, and usage of Fort Road as a right-of-way, any fences that obstruct the area shall be removed. In lieu of fencing, the applicant shall be authorized to place informational signage on their property that may request that pedestrians stay on existing trails and do not harm the dune habitat.
Thank you. Any questions from Emily, from the council to Emily? None at this time. Okay. Attorney Main, please.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I'm going to introduce Mr. August as part of the client and applicant team. May I reserve about 2 minutes after any public comment to make my own comments about the application and why we're here? Thank you. Mr. August?
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Peter August. I am the president of the Watch Hill Conservancy and have headed up the Napa Tree Science Advisor team for 13 years. I'm a professor emeritus in the URI Department of Natural Resources Science, where I taught GIS classes in landscape ecology. I'd like to take a moment to explain why it's very important to repair our split rail fence on Napa Tree. Since 1972, the Watch Hill Fire District and its Park Commission and Napa Tree Point Conservation Committee actively stewarded the conservation with CRMC's authorization. That was before my time, and I would like to limit my remarks to the Conservancy commissioned the Rhode Island Natural History Survey to conduct ecological surveys of Napa Tree to evaluate the most important management challenges and recommend stewardship actions the Conservancy should take to mitigate them. I was a member of the team of experts conducting the assessment. The Conservancy was particularly interested in learning best practices to achieve 2 fundamental management goals: protect the plants, animals, geology, and ecosystem processes on Napa Tree. And number 2, ensure the public has access to Napa Tree and will have an enjoyable, safe, and informative visit. Following this study, I headed up the creation of a team of science advisors to guide our stewardship. It consists of a coastal geologist, originally Dr. John Boothroyd, and after his passing, Dr. Brian Oakley, an invasive plant biologist, Hope Leeson, a plant ecologist, Dr. Keith Killingbeck, a Napa tree policy expert, Janice Sassy, an ornithologist, Dr. Peter Payton, and a marine scientist, Alan Devaney. We engage our advisors in all of our stewardship activities. The Natural History Survey strongly advised us that we manage the social trails on Napa Tree. Social trails are paths regularly used by visitors and result in trampled vegetation. In 2012, we GPSed and mapped all the paths on Napa Tree. There were no marked trails at the time, and visitors crossed from bay to beach willy-nilly along the whole dune system. Our mapping showed there were 64 different social trails spanning 2.4 miles in length. This means there were 2.4 miles of trampled native dune grass, which, as we've heard from staff, is important in dune stabilization. This kind of habitat, I might add, is called maritime herbaceous dune, and according to the Department of Environmental Management's 2015 Wildlife Action Plan, is in the highest ranking category of habitat in the state of need of conservation. In 2013, the Napa Tree Manager instituted a new trail management policy. 8 paths were chosen to permit easy and convenient visitor transit between bay and ocean, and were conspicuously marked as approved dune crossover paths. This trail network was only 0.3 miles long. With funding from 4 different competitive grants from the CRMC Habitat Restoration Program between 2014 and 2015, we began an aggressive program to restore native vegetation in the reclaimed 2.1 miles of worn social trails. Under the guidance of the Rhody Native Program and Rhode Island Natural History Survey, we planted 2,590 individual plants of 20 different species on closed trails. We chose plants native to this kind of environment and of value to pollinators and wildlife. This is in addition to 13,000 beach grass plugs that we planted on trails and washover sites following Superstorm Sandy. Trails where restoration occurred were marked at their ends so visitors would not trample the newly planted vegetation. In 2015, we were advised by the U.S. National Park Service to use split rail cedar fencing to delineate conservation areas. It's long-lasting, beautiful, sends a clear message to visitors that the area behind it is protected, and most importantly, allows for the natural flow of sand. On this best practice guidance, we began replacing the traditional dune fencing, which traps sand and disrupts natural dune geological processes. The plant restoration and split rail fencing cost $156,498 and was spread over 5 years. $103,000 was provided by competitive CRMC coastal and estuarine habitat restoration funds. $53,000 was paid by the Watch Hill Conservancy, the Fire District, and the URI Coastal Institute Grants and Aid Program. In the storms that we had in December and January, wave energy and erosion reached the base of the split rail fencing on the ocean side, knocking down some of the fence structure, putting it at risk of washing away in the sea. Napa Tree Manager Daniel Cole gathered the damaged fencing and disassembled other fencing in jeopardy of further damage and stored the material off-site so the cedar timbers would not be lost. Our CRMC maintenance assent application before you is to put the fence back in place and to re-level other areas of split rail fencing where sand has built up or been blown away. We wanted to do this before the summer season so visitors would know not to climb the dune into the plant restoration zone. Unfortunately, since the fencing has been down, 2 new trails have emerged ascending the dune, and the vegetated dune crest now has 340 feet of newly trampled beach grass. We work hard to develop free educational programs to encourage visitors to Napatree. The split rail fencing is a simple, clear, aesthetically pleasing, and effective tool in letting them know important conservation work lies beyond the fence. We are most grateful for CRMC's support of our conservation work on Napatree, and we hope the assent application is approved soon so we can reassemble the split rail fencing and protect our dune system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. August from the council? Okay. Anything else at this time?
Not at this time. I may have comments. Have a
Okay.
public comment, please.
Is there anyone else present this evening to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone present this evening to speak in opposition of this application? You can come forward, sir. Why don't you guys sit there, Robert, if you could just surrender the table and you guys can come back up. No, okay. Everyone is not present.
You're here in opposition, Mr. Pelzold, correct? As a member of the public.
That's correct.
Okay.
Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Anthony Palazzolo Jr., ANTHONY, PALAZZOLO JR.
Okay.
Mr. Pelzold, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay. And let's see.
Go.
Richard Langstaff, Langseth.
All right, Mr. Langseth, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, please proceed.
So as I always do, I would like to start with a disclaimer that I'm licensed to practice law in the states of Connecticut and California. I'm not licensed to practice in the state of Rhode Island. Nothing I do or say here should be construed as an opinion of law. I am representing no clients who have an interest in this matter. I can't because I'm not licensed in Rhode Island. I have done a fair amount of advocacy for shoreline access, and I've never taken a penny for it. I'm here today, and as I always am, in my personal capacity and would-be user of the property. I applaud the Watch Hill Fire District's and the Watch Hill Conservancy's environmental efforts as just described to you. In my opinion, however, all of it was done in total disregard for the public's right to access Napatree Point, which is a very complex matter that extends back to probably at 1903 when the road was originally constructed. The fact of the matter is that the town of Westerly did designate Fort Road as a town right-of-way on October 6th, 2008. In doing so, they attached several maps showing exactly where that right-of-way is. And I believe this is in the record, and I believe it indisputable that the fence that the Watch Hill Fire District constructed completely blocks that town designated right of way. In my personal opinion, looking across the record of various assets, it's fair to say that no sooner had the town of Westerly designated Fort Road as a town right of way that the Watch Hill interests went to work obfuscating that right of way and in my opinion, attempting to eliminate it. I base that on my review of the assets that I've seen from CRMC, their assets to plant vegetation on the Napatry Point from 2008, 2014, 2019, and of course, this application. Now, I focused on the 2019 application and this one. And I find it troubling that the fire district never gives you the information that there's a town designated right of way out there. Their attorney was present throughout all of the town council meetings, which resulted in that right of way. They were fully aware of the designation of that right of way in 2008, yet they didn't inform the CRMC in the 2019 application. Didn't inform you in this application. I had to inform you about that. So I do believe that their work provides a fundamentally important environmental function, but there's also, I believe, another function here that is not being presented to you. But I believe it's revealed in Gerald Petros's letter to Bill Conley on November 17th, 2022. Gerald Petros, of course, is the attorney for the fire district. And he writes to Bill Conley explaining reasons why the Fort Road right of way should not be respected. And on page 3, he says, Fort Road private easement also terminated for another reason. The original easement recorded in 1903 and again in 1909 is not referenced in any deeds in the chain of title of the properties on Napatry Point since 1926. Rhode Island's Marketable Record Title Act extinguishes easements or rights of ways not referenced in a deed within the last 40 years. Only easements that are still readily observably present on the subject property survive the 40-year automatic expiration. So they plant vegetation on the right of way. They put up a fence to tell people not to go there. And across the great sweep of time, the right of way falls into disuse, becomes overgrown, is not readily observable, and therefore that can be used as a factual predicate for erasing the public's right to traverse Napatry Point. I provided in the record state aerial photographs from the state of Rhode Island and the state of Connecticut spanning from 1962 to 2011. In my opinion, these aerial photographs from the state clearly show that the Fort Road right of way was being used by the general public through 2011, when the fire district's effort to fence off the right of way and plant on the right of way really took hold. I believe that part of what these people are doing here is trying to erase the right of way so that they can then have a judge declare it invalid on a technicality. Now, I don't think there's any dispute here that the purpose of the fencing is to keep the visitors off the right of way. Robin Main's letter of June 25th, 2024 to Jeff Willis specifically says that the purpose of the split rail fencing is to protect the sensitive dunes by discouraging visitors from leaving the marked pathways and traversing those dunes. Those dunes, that's the right of way. And I included in a recent correspondence to the council a copy of the 2019 assent, where they also requested the ability to repair the split rail fence. That application is replete with statements to the effect that the purpose of the fence is to prevent pedestrians from using this path on Napatry Point. So, I have a real problem with all of that. Now, however, I do applaud Emily Hall's work on this matter. And I think she has come up with two possible resolutions, and I support both of them. The first suggestion is that apparently it's not the present position, but in the file, was that the Watch Hill Fire District leave gaps in the fencing 20 feet wide so that the right of way would not be obstructed. I applaud that. I think that's the right thing to do. The rub here, though, is you have to know which 20 feet to leave open. So they're going to have to conduct a survey, find out exactly where the right of way is, and leave gaps so that the fencing blocks every other direction, but not through the right of way. And I would support that, as long as they survey it from Bay Street out to their fence and put that in the record. Her second proposal, I think, is even more clever and better for everybody involved. She suggested that the fire district argue under Rule 1.3.6A3 that the fire district has already provided sufficient substitute access that it would be reasonable to allow the split rail fence to block the right of way. I am here to argue in favor of the Watch Hill Fire District's grant of substitute access. It can be found in CRMC Ascent 87-10-066, which occurred obviously in 1987. The fire district requested permission of the CRMC to repair their seawall with a special exception application under Section 130. The transcript of that proceeding indicates that the Watch Hill Fire District agreed to grant access to Napatri Point to satisfy the requirement of Section 130 that the project not be primarily for private use, but for public use. The result of that assent in that proceeding was that CRMC added stipulation Q to the assent. The stipulation Q says, quote, pedestrian traffic to Napatri Point shall not be restricted, period, close quote. That's it. And to repeat that, please. Pedestrian access to Napatri Point shall not be restricted. Now, I trust the environmentalist who says that it's best for the environment that they plant the vegetation and they fence it off. And they have, I trust him when he says they have a good network here to allow people to access the shore, both the north and south side of Napatri Point, and that they've worked it out. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. What I would like is CRMC to say that stipulation Q is still effective and enforceable, and it is the access that is sufficient substitute access permitting Watch Hill to fence off the right of way. Otherwise, shouldn't do. Just take a vote and say the path network that the Watch Hill Fire District has worked out satisfies the stipulation Q from the 1987 asset. I would be great with that. People would be able to walk from Bay Street to the Squamicut Club and then enter their path network. They'll follow the path network to the south shore of Napatri Point or the north shore of Napatri Point, exactly where they want the visitors to be. The only thing that I would request here is that the CRMC say that that is stipulation Q at work. It is sufficient substitute access, so it's okay for them to otherwise fence off a designated right of way that would otherwise be improper. If it's okay, I would like to distribute one map to members of the council.
So,
You know, there's a deadline to file written statements, which is 6 days before the hearing.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, it's in the management rules and regulations. You can use it for reference, but it won't be made an exhibit.
Okay, may I pass it
Go
around?
right ahead.
Who should I pass it to?
I'll take it. Thank you. It's Emily, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is important, you know, relevant to what we're talking about now, not necessarily critically important. The fire district has presented in this file their conservation easement and the associated map with that easement. However, what I found in interacting with governmental officials regarding this conservation easement, the fire district loves to talk about how public access is guaranteed by their conservation easement in perpetuity. Everything's great, everything's great. Sometimes they include their map, sometimes they don't. They did include the map to the CRMC. However, it's basically illegible, and I think you might not have really appreciated what that map teaches. So I have taken that map and I've colored it with orange and blue. Blue is Bay Street, which is the closest public road to Napatry Point. And all of the areas that I colored in fluorescent orange are not covered by the conservation easement. The white areas are. And the primary purpose of providing this to you is to show you that the conservation easement and the guarantees of public access in there don't apply the 1,000 feet from Bay Street out to the Misconnery Club. The only way for the public to take advantage of the public access in the conservation easement is to use a jetpack or a helicopter from Bay Street past the Misconnery Club to reach those white areas. And so in my opinion, the conservation easement is essentially illusory. It's there to make you think that they're concerned about public access, but there is no practical public access. Thank you.
any questions of Mr. Palazzolo from the council? No. So Langseth.
Hello, Richard Langseth. I'd like to bring to your attention, there's another party involved in all of this, and I haven't heard anything from them. It's called the WHFD Beach Condominium. And this condominium was established in 2013 and runs from Bay Street all the way down to the Harriet Mifflin property on the Atlantic Ocean, and then north to the Cove or the Inner Bay, and then back to beyond the yacht club. And this condominium association has 3 condominiums. And in addition to that, open land that has not been established as condominium yet. The 3 condominiums, the one that's most interesting is where the Misquamicut Club is. That's called condominium number 3. And the Watch Hill Fire District sold that property to the beach club for $2 million. And what it did at the time, if you read the condominium agreement that's filed in the land evidence, you will see that a 15-foot right-of-way is established across the entire condominium to the Harriet Mifflin property. And it runs on the inward shoreline on the Narragansett Bay side for 15 feet, and it runs and it goes inward with the high tide. So as we have tidal rise, and it explains in the condominium agreement, where we have sea level rise, that 15-foot easement runs south and south and south until there's nothing left. I would suggest that before you make a decision on any of this, that you look at the land evidence, get this condominium association in here, have them explain why they have that 15-foot easement and how that impacts the fence. It just seems to me that you can't make a decision until you look at that. Thank you very much.
Any questions of Mr. Langseth? Okay, anyone else this evening that wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Come forward, sir.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Sure, my name is Ellen Kane, K-A-N-E, 76 Winnebago Road, Westerly. And I'm speaking in opposition to the request for the fencing. Probably because my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, has been that no one is allowed to block a right of way. And since there is current litigation going on, I think it behooves waiting until the litigation is settled. I'm also very concerned about the what I see as sort of a persistent attempt to erase Fort Road, whether it's as an address, whether it's across Napatry Point, including in the Watch Hill Fire District official minutes. In the minutes over the last few years, that where it's mentioned there, it pertains more to the dredging. But they've actually gone back to take out Fort Road and replace it with kind of a euphemism calling the access path to Napatry Point. And you have to wonder why is that being done? Why are they scrubbing the minutes of Fort Road, which has been used, for how many decades, and replacing it with kind of a very awkward phrase, access road to Napatry Point? And I think it is part of, a larger plan because Fort Road is inconvenient to the fire district. And I think to the Conservancy as well, although I certainly, I'm very grateful to the Conservancy for the conservation work they've done on Napatry Point. But the Watch Hill Conservancy is a 501c3 organization, and it says their mission is to conserve, enhance, and maintain the natural, scenic, and historic values of Watch Hill and Little Narragansett Bay. And I find it very interesting that Fort Road, Fort Mansfield at the end of Napatry Point, certainly the key part of the history of Watch Hill and Westerly. It's sort of been erased. There's not mention of that. And I think it ties into the wish to just go ahead with this plan and then see if the path is sort of erased. So I would hope that you can take this into consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Any questions of Ms. Kane? No? Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Okay, Attorney Main, come back.
Thank you for your attention. And first, I'd like to thank Emily Hall for her staff report and the time and effort that she put into that report, which was an excellent job. I want to level set here. Why are we here tonight? The Watch Hill Fire District is here under a maintenance assent to repair the split rail fence that CRMC has previously approved, and that was damaged heavily during the coastal storms this past winter. We want to reinstall 240 feet of fence and level 850 feet of fence. Again, fence that CRMC has already approved in the past. So this is a maintenance ascent. By the way, that fence has nothing to do with the Misquamicut Beach Club, and it's not on the Misquamicut Beach Club property. It is all on Watch Hill Fire District property. What you have heard from the objectors over the past few minutes is an attempt to convert a maintenance ascent into a dispute before CRMC over a 20-foot wide right-of-way called Fort Road, quote unquote. I'm here tonight on a maintenance application for a split rail fence that's about 1,000 feet in length. So they're talking about a dispute over a 20-foot right-of-way. I'm here talking about many hundreds of feet of a split rail fence. And that fence is within CRMC's jurisdiction. You've approved it before, and you approved it for the good reasons that Mr. August explained a few minutes ago. But it's not within CRMC's jurisdiction tonight to adjudicate the dispute that's in Superior Court over the Fort Road right-of-way. A judge will do that in Superior Court, and ultimately maybe even our Rhode Island Supreme Court. But it's not before the council tonight. As much as the objectors want to blow this maintenance application into that issue. And the only issue I have with Ms. Hall's good staff recommendation is that if, for some reason, that frankly would blow my mind, a judge would find that Fort Road exists, then we want any appeals to be exhausted before we have to remove the fence from that 20-foot area. Not a Superior Court judge, but if it goes to the Supreme Court, all final appeals exhausted. That's my one edit, if you don't mind, to the staff report. But that litigation is playing out in its own forum. It's not before the council tonight. And what is peculiar to me, and I've been in front of this council for 30 or so years, is that these objections that are to the side of what CRMC's jurisdiction is, has delayed the fire district and the conservancy from doing their work all summer. This fence should have been up and fixed before Memorial Day in the high tourist season. But now we've seen, and it's natural, it happens, a lot of damage on the dunes in this fragile ecosystem that is CRMC's duty to protect. And so I ask tonight that you approve our application, our maintenance ascent. I ask that the one edit be that we will, and I've offered this, I offered it early in the summer, we will remove that 20 feet of fence among the hundreds of feet of fence if after all final appeals are exhausted, the court says, no, Fort Road exists. Then we'll remove it at that time. But we're not going to say today in front of the council that Fort Road exists, which is what the objectors are trying to get us to do. The fence needs to be put back in where it's been all along and repaired. And I plead that if, and I don't wish this on the state or anyone, that if we have a hurricane or if we have tremendous coastal storms again, and this fence needs to be repaired again, that we don't have to wait months on a maintenance ascent, but instead that the staff can approve it. You have excellent leadership with Jeff and Laura, that the staff can approve a maintenance ascent of a pre-approved structure like this split rail fence and be able to determine that certain objections are just not within CRMC's jurisdiction, like an objection over whether this road exists or not. And I think from just someone who appears before you quite a bit and has the privilege of doing so, that the staff be able to exercise their good judgment and deep expertise to be able to do that, because we don't want to have to go through this process again. So again, tonight we respectfully request that you approve our application to reinstall and level this split rail fence so that the vegetation and the dunes can be adequately protected.
Any questions of Attorney Main? Mr. Gomez?
Just one, the issue of the condominium associations came up, and I'm familiar with that had gone through us and looking at that, but I don't see an impact with that. Is there any such impact with it?
No, there isn't, Mr. Gomez.
Okay.
All of the fences on the Watch Hill Fire District property, they're the fee owner. Ms. Hall refers to that too in her report. In fact, I think Ms. Hall did extensive work with the town of Westerly to make sure that the appropriate fee owner was the applicant. We had the required letter from Westerly stating that, you know, these are the plat and lots owned by the fire district. And again, as I said earlier, the Musquamacut Beach Club has nothing to do with this fence. The fence does not touch their property.
So what we are looking for is approval to repair the split rail fencing. And you asked that we include a plan for 20-foot rail removal for right of way if all appeals were exhausted. That was your only addition that you would like to see.
To Ms. Hall's report. That's right,
Okay,
Mr. Gomez.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Attorney Main?
One question, do we have
Yes,
any
Mr.
sense
Flynn.
of the timing of courts
Okay.
looking at this issue?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
It's still in Superior Court. It's in a discovery phase.
It's a declaratory judgment action. That means, unless I'm mistaken, this is not going to be a jury trial.
Correct.
And discovery means that they're gathering evidence that they will present in a record to the court. They will have briefs. There'll be arguments, I'm sure, and then the judge will decide the case.
That's correct. And let me just note, I mean, Mr. August talked about it, but you know, lots been said since Pete was up here. There's all sorts of trails on Napatri. There's public access to Napatri. We're just protecting the dune and certain vegetation with a split rail fence. But we invite you to come down this weekend. It will be very busy. But there's beautiful trails all across Napatri. There is public access at Napatri.
Thank you. Ms. Hall, does any of the testimony that was given this evening change your opinion?
No, it does not.
All right. Yes, Mr. Gagnon.
Ms. Hall, if you have any objection to what Ms. Main has suggested as making it a final appeal that be exhausted.
I do not personally have an objection. That strikes me as reasonable, but I will defer to the council.
Okay, if I may, if the court decides that Fort Road exists, I'm assuming they're going to say where it exists. They're going to have to do it anyway.
No, I'm saying, yeah, but the part about just changing the condition to when all appeals are exhausted.
Okay.
It just makes it a cleaner package, doesn't it? If we include that. You know?
It kind of let me put it to you this way. Under 82-14, the issue of title to real estate and rights of way matters of that nature rests with Superior Court. So if this application is to be granted, and then the Superior Court then rules that Fort Road exists, this is where Fort Road exists. I'm assuming that's part of the discovery. Then you can't block it because it's a right of way.
So a suggestion is not to include that?
Go right ahead.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't, it's not like, that's basically what's gonna happen anyway. So include it, but.
Okay, and I just have one more question on the additional stipulations. We're using the standard stipulations and you indicated there was some additional.
The one additional is the one regarding Fort Road.
And what would they be?
that upon Superior Court judgment and
Okay,
the council agrees, the exhaustion of appeals.
I've got them,
Yeah.
I've got them. Thank you.
And I guess I will clarify that, I personally don't have an issue with the judgment of the exhaustion of appeals because as of now, there is public access on Napatri. I think the goals of the CRMP are being met with existing public pathways.
Any further questions of Attorney Main from the council? Right, is the council in a position, a posture for a motion?
Oh, you go ahead.
Mr. Gomez.
Go ahead. Yeah, based on the staff report, finding of fact, and on the presentations brought before us, I would move approval of this application with the standard stipulations and the additional stipulations as presented, which are what the this is it. And oh, go ahead. The additional stipulations regarding Fort Road shall be prepared as well should the Rhode Island Superior Court rule on the location, ownership and usage of Fort Road as a right of way. Until all appeals are concluded. Any fences that obstruct the area shall be removed. In lieu of fencing, the applicant shall be authorized to place informational signage on their property. The signage may request that pedestrians stay on the existing trails and that pedestrians do not harm the dune habitat. Is that correct?
The motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gagnon and Mr. Who said it? Mr. Izzy as well. Any discussion? Have your hand raised, Mr. Flynn? I saw you kind of like this, was that?
No.
Okay.
No. Just waiting to vote
All right.
as soon as you get to me.
Motion been made and seconded to approve it. I'll now poll the council. Mr. Flynn,
Aye.
Mr. Izzy,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coyle, vote aye. The application has been approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The following one has been certified to